The hotel lobby stretched before me, a cathedral of wealth and whispers. Chandeliers dripped light onto the marble floor, their gleam bouncing off polished surfaces. I adjusted the strap of my purse, the gift bag swinging lightly in my other hand. My heels clicked against the stone, a nervous rhythm I couldn't shake. March 21st, 2025. Chicago dressed in its evening best, and I'd come for Avery's wedding. My sister, my blood. The air buzzed with the faint hum of a string quartet, seeping through the ballroom doors like a promise I wasn't sure I'd get to keep. I stepped up to the reception desk, offering a small smile. The woman behind it, blonde, young, her hair straightened to a razor's edge, glanced up, her practiced politeness in place. "Name?" she asked, fingers poised over a tablet. "Ella Hughes," I said, voice steady despite the flutter in my chest. She tapped the screen, her brow creasing slightly. Then she looked at me, and the words came, quick and brutal. "I'm sorry, but your name isn't on the guest list." The air vanished. My breath locked in my throat, a knot I couldn't swallow. This can't be real. The word slammed into me, a slap I didn't see coming. "That must be a mistake," I said, forcing the calm to stay, though my fingers tightened around the bag. "The bride's my sister, Avery Hughes." Her eyes flickered, pity, sharp and sour, like cheap perfume wafting off her. I hated it. She hesitated, her hand hovering, then tapped again, slower this time. "Could you check again?" I pressed, my voice still even. But inside something twisted, raw and jagged. She skimmed the list, her lips parting as if to speak, then closing again. The seconds dragged, unbearable. The clink of glasses and soft laughter floated in from behind me, a world I was suddenly outside of. Then her expression shifted, apology, dread, a look I'd seen before bad news. She leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper. "It wasn't a mistake. Your mother, Lydia Hughes, requested you not be admitted." My heartbeat thundered, drowning the music. "Lydia requested..." The words echoed, hollow and cruel. I stared at her, the room tilting just enough to unsteady me. "I'm sorry, what?" I managed, my grip on the bag whitening my knuckles. She glanced around, nervous now, her hushed tone barely audible. "Mrs. Hughes told the staff you weren't to be let in, under any circumstances. I'm so sorry, I know this must be..." "Awkward?" I cut in, the word bitter on my tongue. She flinched, but I didn't care. Awkward didn't touch it. My own mother, Lydia, 58 and pristine as ever, had carved me out of my sister's wedding, out of our family. The sting burned deep, a wound I couldn't name yet. I stood there a moment longer, the lobby's glow pressing against me, heavy with eyes I didn't want to meet. My pulse roared, but I wouldn't let it show. I won't crumble. Not for them to gawk at. Slowly, I turned to the counter, the gift bag still in my hand. A blanket I stitched for Avery, 28, white with blue flowers. 2 months of quiet nights poured into it. A piece of me she'd never know she had. I set it down gently, the ribbon brushing my fingers. "Give this to the bride," I said. My voice clipped. Final. The receptionist nodded, her curiosity thinly veiled, but I didn't give her more. I adjusted my purse strap and walked toward the glass doors, heels striking the marble like a metronome of resolve. Whispers trailed me, soft, sharp, the kind that prick your skin. I felt them watching, waiting for me to break, to turn back and demand answers. But I wouldn't. If they don't want me, I won't beg. The doors slid open and the night hit me, cold and raw. The wind clawed my face, slicing through the haze in my head. Chicago hummed outside, headlights slashing across the glass, tires hissing on wet pavement. Laughter drifted down from a rooftop bar, sharp and taunting, a celebration I'd never touch. I stopped at the curb, hands trembling just enough to notice. I shoved them into my pockets, forcing my breath to steady. Lydia's voice echoed in my skull. You're too serious, Ella. Too inconvenient. She'd said it before, 1,000 times, but this was a blade she'd honed for years. My sister's wedding, and I was nothing. Erased. I glanced back at the hotel, its lights mocking me through the glass. Defiance flickered awake, small but alive. They don't get to decide what I am. I lifted my chin, stepped forward, and hailed a cab. The night swallowed me whole, but I wasn't done yet. The cab dropped me at my apartment, a squat brick building dwarfed by Chicago's skyline. Inside, the air hung stale, heavy with the silence of a life I'd let shrink. Midnight crept closer, the clock's soft tick mocking my racing pulse. I kicked off my heels, the cold floor biting my feet, and moved to the bookshelf. My fingers brushed old medical textbooks, relics of a nursing career I'd clung to, until they found it. A wooden box, small and unassuming, tucked behind half-read novels. I pulled it down, the weight settling in my hands like a confession waiting to spill. I set it on the kitchen table, the single lamp casting a flickering glow across the scratched wood. The lid creaked open, revealing a tangle of papers. Receipts, bank statements, checks I'd written for Avery's law school, her rent, her textbooks. Years of my savings poured into her future while mine stalled. The screen's glare burned my eyes as I opened my laptop, each click deliberate, fueled by a fury I couldn't name yet. I started with the bank records, scrolling through transactions I'd never questioned until a line stopped me cold. A life insurance payout, my father's last gift to me, redirected 3 years ago, signed over to Lydia Hughes. My breath hitched, sharp and shallow. She took it. Dad's last piece of me, swallowed by her. The numbers stared back, unblinking. $50,000, meant for me after his cancer, ate him alive, now nestled in Lydia's account. I'd been 29 then, drowning in hospital shifts to pay his bills, while she'd played the grieving widow, pristine in black cashmere. My jaw clenched so hard, it ached. I dug deeper, pulling up statements from Avery's tuition fund, money I'd contributed, drained without a trace. Every sacrifice I'd made, every night I'd skipped sleep to stitch that damn blanket, she'd turned into nothing. The papers crackled like brittle bones under my grip, each one a thread in a web I hadn't seen. Lydia, 58, hadn't just excluded me from the wedding. She'd spent years erasing me piece by piece. My chest tightened, a fire spreading where numbness had been. She stole more than money. She stole my choices, my future. I leaned back, the chair creaking under me, and stared at the ceiling. The city droned outside, a low hum that matched the rage building in my veins. This wasn't oversight. This was theft, deliberate and cruel. I wasn't done digging, not by a long shot. Dawn bled through the blinds, a faint gray washing over the mess on my table. Coffee sat untouched, cold in its mug, the bitter scent mingling with the dust I'd let settle too long. My eyes burned, but I couldn't stop. The laptop glowed, a lifeline to answers I hadn't known I needed. I pulled my phone from my purse, its screen lighting up with a hollow promise. I scrolled through old texts to Avery, 28 messages I'd sent over years, thinking she was too busy to reply. Hey, sent you a birthday gift. Let me know if it arrived. Read, no response. Hope the bar exam went well. Proud of you. Undelivered. The phone weighed like lead in my hand, a tomb of lies I'd believed. My thumb hovered, then tapped further back. Thinking of you today? Let's catch up. Read at 9:43 p.m. 3 years ago, silence after. I'd told myself she was swamped. Law school, her perfect life, the golden daughter Lydia had sculpted. But now, each unanswered word cut deeper, a pattern I couldn't unsee. I switched to emails, old threads with Lydia from when she'd still bothered pretending I mattered. One caught my eye, sent after Dad's funeral. Ella, we'll sort the insurance soon. Focus on yourself. A lie, casual and smooth, while she'd already rerouted the money. My breath caught, ragged and quick. I wasn't lost. I was scrubbed out. Lydia's hand had been there, intercepting every message, every chance to stay connected. She'd filtered me from Avery's life, made me a ghost, while I'd poured myself into their survival. The apartment felt smaller, the walls pressing in as realization sank like a stone. I'd cared for Dad when he was dying, spent my savings on Avery's dreams, and Lydia had turned it all to ash. My fingers curled into fists, nails biting my palms. She'd rewritten me as the sister who didn't care, the daughter who faded away. I shoved the phone down, its clatter loud in the stillness. The city woke outside, cars honking, a dog barking somewhere below. But inside, my mind raced. Every silence, every unanswered call hadn't been Avery's choice. It had been Lydia's. A quiet, insidious erasure spanning years. My throat tightened, nausea creeping up, but I swallowed it down. She thought I'd stay invisible. The fire from last night flared hotter, steady now. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a witness, and I had proof. The box sat open, its contents a weapon I'd wield when the time was right. Late morning sun sliced through the dust motes in my apartment, cutting sharp lines across the chaos of papers still strewn on the table. My hands were steady now, the tremble from last night burned away by purpose. I'd spent hours after dawn pulling every thread. Bank records, emails, a legal demand letter from an attorney I'd called at first light. The evidence sat stacked, a tower of truth Lydia couldn't dodge. I picked up my phone, its weight familiar but heavier with intent, and dialed her number. Each ring tightened the coil in my chest, anticipation sharpening my edges. She answered on the third ring, her voice smooth as polished glass. "Ella, this is a surprise." Lydia, 58, sounded smug, like she'd already rehearsed this victory in her head. I could picture her, pearls gleaming, tea in hand, basking in the Handover Club's glow. "I thought you'd want to clear things up," I said, my tone cool, edged with something she wouldn't catch yet. A pause lingered, her sipping her tea audible through the line, a sound that grated my nerves. "Clear things up?" she echoed, a faint laugh threading her words. "Fine, let's meet." I set the phone down, a slow breath escaping me. She's so smug. Perfect. Let her step into it. She thought I'd crawl back, broken, begging for a scrap of her approval. She didn't know I'd found the cracks in her throne, cracks I'd widen until it crumbled. I gathered the documents, sliding them into my purse with care. The trap was set, and Lydia, in all her arrogance, had just agreed to walk right in. I grabbed my coat, the door clicking shut behind me like a starting gun. The Handover Club smelled of wealth and whispers, crisp linens, soft clinks of china, a faint tang of champagne lingering in the air. I arrived first, choosing a table near the window, the city's pulse visible through the glass. My purse rested beside me, heavy with proof, my fingers tracing its strap as I waited. Lydia swept in minutes later, 58 and radiant in silk, her posture screaming victory. She slid into the seat across from me, effortless grace masking the predator beneath. "Ella," she said, her smile thin. "You look well." Her eyes flicked over me, expecting defeat, but I met them with a calm she didn't deserve. "So do you," I lied, letting her bask in it. For 5 minutes, I played along. Small talk about Avery's wedding, the weather, her polished life. Watching her relax, her guard slipping just enough. Then I reached into my purse, pulling out the first sheet of paper, the redirected payout stark in black ink. I slid it across the table, slow and deliberate. "You know," I said, voice quiet, "I never thought you'd cut me out completely." Her brow lifted, a sip of tea pausing midair, but she didn't look down yet. "You cut yourself out, darling," she replied, smooth as ever. "Always so difficult." I smiled, sharp and small. Dramatic, you mean? Her lips parted, but I didn't wait. I slid the legal demand letter next, its weight heavier than the first. She glanced down then, and the color drained from her face, subtle but there. Her earrings flashed as she stiffened, fingers curling slightly around her cup. This was mine, I said, low and firm. Dad wanted me to have it. You stole it. The air tightened, hers to choke on now. She set the tea down, her hand trembling just enough to betray her. I did what I had to, she snapped, voice thinning. Your father left a mess. Expenses, obligations. No, I cut in, leaning forward, down. You did what you wanted. For you. Her lips pressed tight, arrogance flickering like a dying bulb. I watched her calculate, her jaw tensing as she scanned the letter, dates, amounts, legal threats she couldn't spin away. You never thought I'd find out, did you? I added, my tone steady, slicing through her silence. She didn't answer, but I saw it. The fear, rare and raw, seeping into her eyes. Not of me, but of losing control. The one thing she'd built her life around. I'm not here to argue, Mother, I said, watching her flinch at the word. I'm here to give you a choice. She scoffed, the mask snapping back, but it was flimsy now. A choice? She mocked, voice clipped. Yes, I replied, smooth as steel. Fix what you broke, or I will. I let it hang, heavy between us, her fingers twitching against the table. She knew I wasn't bluffing. The documents weren't just paper. They were a loaded gun, aimed at her pristine world. Her social circle, her reputation, Avery's blind loyalty, all of it could burn with one move from me. Fine, she said at last, her voice thin, brittle. What do you want? I tilted my head, holding her gaze. She's not untouchable. Not now. The room felt smaller, the clinks of china fading as her empire teetered. I didn't answer yet, letting her squirm, letting her feel what it was like to be at someone else's mercy. She'd spent years crafting lies, thinking I'd stay silent, but I'd just turned her game against her, and for the first time, Lydia Hughes wasn't winning. I leaned back, a quiet thrill pulsing through me. Now, we were getting somewhere. 3 days after the handover club, dusk settled over my apartment, shadows pooling in the corners. Rain tapped the windows, a soft rhythm against the quiet I'd grown used to. The papers still sat on my table, though neater now, their edges worn from my hands. I'd sent copies to Avery that morning, financial statements, the redirected payout, proof of Lydia's theft, attached to a simple note. You should know. I hadn't expected a response, not so soon, but the buzzer jolted me upright. Her voice crackled, through, tight and urgent. Ella, it's me. Let me in. I opened the door, and Avery, 28, stormed past, her designer coat dripping onto my floor. Her eyes blazed, clutching the printed evidence I'd mailed, her knuckles white around the pages. Tell me it's not true, she demanded, her voice unsteady, breaking on the last word. I didn't move, didn't speak, just pointed to the table where the originals lay. She dropped the papers, her hands shaking as she scanned them again. Tuition payments I'd made, rerouted insurance money, all funneled through Lydia's hands. The air smelled of rain and regret, thick between us. She always said you walked away, Avery whispered, her gaze darting to me, searching. That you didn't care, that you were too busy for us. Her words hung, heavy with a lifetime of lies she'd swallowed. I stepped closer, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. She lied, Avery. She made sure I was nothing to you. Her breath hitched, and she sank onto the couch, the papers crumpling under her grip. I can't believe this, she said, quieter now, the fire in her eyes dimming to something raw, wounded. I sat beside her, the cushion dipping under my weight. She took everything, Dad's money, my voice, our connection, and gave you her version instead. Avery's head snapped up, realization settling like a stone. The wedding, she murmured. She told me you didn't want to come. I nodded, the memory of that night stinging fresh. She erased me, but I've got the proof now. Her hands tightened, the papers rustling as she stared at them. Then, slowly, she met my eyes, her voice firm despite the tremble. I see that now. I believe you. The room stilled, the rain's patter softening outside. She's unshackled too. We're not her pawns anymore. For the first time in years, Avery looked at me. Not as Lydia's shadow, not as the sister who'd disappeared, but as Ella, 32, real, and here. I exhaled, a weight lifting I hadn't known I carried. "What happens next?" she asked, her tone tentative, but strong. I leaned back, a faint smile tugging my lips. "You ask her. See what she says when the mask's off." Avery nodded, resolve hardening her features, and I knew Lydia's perfect daughter was gone. I didn't need to see it to know how it played out. 3 days after Avery's visit, Lydia's world began to crack, piece by quiet piece. I pictured her at her favorite cafe, alone now, her coffee cold in its cup, her poise a hollow shell. She'd fought returning the money, stalled with excuses, pleaded through lawyers, even offered me hush money to keep her secrets buried. But I'd refused, and by the end of the week, the $50,000 hit my account, every cent she'd stolen from Dad's insurance. The victory tasted bitter, not sweet, because it wasn't just about the dollars. Avery stopped answering her calls, the first domino to fall. I heard it from a text she sent me late one night. Confronted her. She denied it, then cried. "I'm done." The wedding guests whispered next, rumors of Lydia's deceit slipping through their polished circles, sidelong glances replacing the admiration she'd craved. The Handover Club, her sanctuary of status, suddenly lost her reservation, a polite excuse masking their disdain. Her throne, built on lies and stolen money, crumbled under its own weight, and I hadn't lifted a finger to push it. I stood at my window, the city sprawling below, its lights flickering like stars I could finally reach. She crafted this ruin. I just lit the match. Lydia, 58, had spent decades sculpting her image. Perfect mother, flawless widow. But it was glass, fragile and fake. Now, with Avery gone, her social empire shrank to nothing. The silence screamed louder than any applause she'd lost. She'd erased me to keep it all, but in the end, she'd erased herself. I turned away, the night air cool against the glass, my reflection steady. It wasn't triumph I felt, not really. It was relief, sharp and clean, cutting through years of her voice in my head. "You're not enough, Ella." She'd made me believe it, but no more. I didn't need to ruin her. She'd done that herself, and that was justice enough. My purse sat on the table, lighter now without the documents, but heavier with possibility. Lydia was nothing, not because I'd destroyed her, but because she'd built nothing real. I was free of her, and that was all I'd ever wanted. Weeks later, I stood in my new apartment, the scent of fresh paint mingling with the crisp fall air slipping through an open window. Boxes lined the walls, half unpacked, a testament to a life I was building on my own terms. The $50,000 sat in my account now, not a trophy, but a tool. Enough to leave the cramped place I'd outgrown, to quit the draining hospital job that had chained me for years. I'd taken a position at a private clinic, one where my nursing mattered, where I wasn't just a shadow in a white coat. My hands traced the edge of a plane ticket on the counter, a trip to Seattle planned for next month, just because I could. The city hummed outside, a steady pulse I'd learned to match. I'd spent so long living for others, Dad's illness, Avery's dreams, Lydia's lies, that I'd forgotten what choice felt like. Now, it was mine, every step, every breath. I grabbed my coat, the fabric soft against my skin, and stepped into the street. Fall painted Chicago in burnt oranges and golds, the air sharp with coffee and leaves crunching underfoot. I walked without hurry, my scarf lifting in the breeze, my steps light for the first time in years. Then I saw her, Lydia, 58, sat outside a cafe, alone at a small table, her cream sweater pristine but her face hollowed by something I couldn't name. Her cup rested untouched, steam long gone, her fingers still around it. Our eyes met, a fleeting collision across the sidewalk. For a moment, I wondered what she'd do. Stand, speak, apologize, or glare with that old venom. But she didn't. She lifted her cup, gave a thin, empty smile, and looked away, back to the nothing she'd become. The woman who'd once filled every room now faded into the crowd, a stranger in her own story. I didn't stop, didn't linger. My heels clicked on, steady and sure, the breeze dancing through my hair. I don't need her eyes on me. I've got my own. She'd spent years trying to erase me, but I'd outgrown her shadow, built something she couldn't touch. Avery had texted me that morning. Coffee soon? A thread we were stitching back, slow and real. Lydia had lost her too, and that was her undoing, not mine. I turned the corner, the cafe slipping from view, and felt the weight lift completely. This was my life now, not hers to define. I paused at a crosswalk, the city alive around me, cars honking, a vendor shouting, laughter spilling from a nearby shop. My reflection caught in a window, and I recognized her. Ella Hughes, 32, not the afterthought, not the ghost, but me. I smiled, small but true, and kept walking. The past was done, and I wasn't looking back. Back in my apartment, I sat by the window, the night settling over Chicago like a blanket. The skyline glittered, a map of lights I'd learned to navigate. I traced the edge of my coffee mug, its warmth seeping into my hands, and let my mind wander. Betrayal slips in quiet sometimes, doesn't it? Not always loud, not always obvious, but insidious, threading through the cracks of what you trust. Lydia's had been like that, slow, deliberate, a rewrite of my story I hadn't seen until it was too late. She'd taken my money, my sister, my place, betting I'd stay silent, but I didn't. I fought, not with screams or fists, but with proof, with choice. I could have burned her world down, emails to her circle, lawyers at her door, but I didn't need to. She'd done that herself, unraveling the moment Avery saw her for what she was. I leaned back, the chair creaking softly, and exhaled. The best revenge isn't destruction, I'd learned. It's living a life they can't touch, building something real when they've got nothing left. I'd found that, step by step, in the quiet moments, booking that trip, laughing without guilt, seeing myself clear. Healing isn't sudden, though. It's not a switch you flip. It's in the small things. The way I unpacked a box without her voice in my head. The way I said yes to Avery without hesitation. It's in the mirror, where I finally know the woman staring back. I sipped my coffee, the bitterness softened by cream, and thought about you, out there, reading this. Betrayals hit you too, maybe. Someone who rewrote you, who pushed you out. So what did you do? What would you do? I set the mug down, the city's hum, a steady companion. You choose. Fight or climb. Tear it down or build better. I climbed, and I'm still here, stronger for it. Tell me below, in the comments, what's your move? I want to hear your story, because mine's just one. The next one's yours.